All right, and here we are. This is the Working Title Show with Zach Sams, and we are back. All right, here we are. This is the Working Title Show with Zach Sams. We are back, and I'm super excited. We got a beautiful day outside. We got great guests, and 2025, it's off and rolling. It's a weird. This is probably the craziest start of any year that I can remember with everything that's going on in the news and in the new administration. So we shouldn't have anything short to talk about today. But with that said, I've got great guests back, guest hosting with us again, probably for the last time since he spilled water all over my notes. But Tyler Isbell with SRS Real Estate, and he brought his new boss, Patrick Luther. Patrick is the managing principal at SRS Capital Markets. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys both for being here. Thanks for coming back, Tyler. Patrick, thanks for gracing us with your presence. Tyler has, you are almost maybe a myth or a legend. I've heard so many stories about you over the last few years,
Good
and
or bad,
all the great things y'all have done. So, when I was looking you up, you got quite the biography. 3 billion in closed transactions in 2021.
I think it's a couple more now.
A couple more than that.
Couple more billions.
That was the start of the billions.
I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
It started when I was 18 years old. It's kind of all I know. I ended up going to university, but I knew I wanted to do this since I was 16, 17, and just kind of kept at it. So it looks like it's a lot in a short period of time, given that I'm 36. But when I look back at it, it's like I think I've gone to 18 ICSCs.
But that wasn't your first dream job. Your first dream job in Vegas, please.
Well, I don't know if it was a dream job, but I ran out of money, so I was bartending at the Mirage.
Did it?
And filling up yards of margaritas.
So I say bartending is a catch-all, but you take the job you can get when you're 21 or 22. So
Sure.
I was the backup to the slushy girl in the halls at the Mirage. So, they'd have like a dolphin cup. So it was like they'd pick their cup, they'd pick their alcohol, and it was like the blue one, the red one, the yellow one, whatever, right? And so
it was kind of like the Vegas vacation buffet. I'll take a little bit of the yellow.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And it was like your typical profile of like, your Hooters type waitress, right, would be the front.
Right.
And I was the guy that had to take and refill either the alcohol or the bags. And I just remember like grabbing this big, because they're decent amount of gallons of like blue raspberry, and like holding the thing, and like the blue raspberry snaps and just starts squirting me in the face with like just pure corn syrup. And that was my job for the first like 6 months until I made a paycheck in brokerage.
Well, you had pretty decent coworkers, it sounds like.
They were nice people.
Yeah.
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 They were nice people.
All right, and we are back from that quick little break. We've got we had to add a new guest, and we're super excited to have him here, David Nehers, who's the president of Rainier Development Company. Did I get that right, David?
You got it.
All right.
First shot.
First try. Yeah, we're quite the veterans over here. But hey, thanks for joining us, and tell us. We were hearing about Patrick. So Patrick, he got his start in, filling yardstick margaritas in Vegas before becoming the $1 billion man. Tell us, did you do any of that? Were you a Vegas margarita salesman?
I've done neither that nor be the $1 billion man, but I can tell you he is. He moves a lot of product. I don't know how far you want me to go back, but I grew up in South Louisiana. And
oh, nice. I was just there.
Yeah, it's, Mardi Gras time, right? So I'm assuming you might have been partaking in that. But
We're in South Louisiana.
I grew up in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And my family was in the midstream business down there, midstream oil and gas.
Yeah.
Where I grew up is a petrochemical town. So there's a saying that everybody drives a pickup truck and the CEO drives a F-350.
Right.
It's a hard hat in your car, go to work type of town. And, I came to SMU, always wanted to go back there, and I did after school. I was involved in family business and was about this close to getting into politics, and got very fortunate that I didn't make a run for Congress and ultimately possibly win and stay in that life. So Dallas kind of brought me back in. A guy from Baton Rouge invited me to basically offered me a job I wasn't qualified for. And that's happened successively throughout my career.
Are you bummed you missed out on all the U.S. aid money?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
not bummed. I'm not.
We could have started an NGO.
Yeah, there's other ways to attack it. I've kind of morphed my career to where most of what I do is public-private.
Yeah.
So I'm on the edge of the political scene, but in the real estate game and the finance game, and that's a hell of a lot better than being an elected official. I'll tell you
And
that.
you're actually building something. You're not
Well,
getting
today,
a USA
today
grant
everything's
for,
theoretical, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm working on building some things, but as folks can tell you, construction loans are tough and costs are high.
But when government partners with you, they can actually see their results, hopefully someday, in a tangible real estate asset.
that's what we sell.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the
So you're not building the high-speed rail to Vegas?
no high-speed rail.
Okay. All right.
No high-speed rails.
Are you a Whodad?
I am a little bit. I'm between the Saints, the Cowboys, and for my wife, for the Cardinals a little bit.
I see. Wait, your wife's a Cardinals fan?
Yeah, grew up in the Valley.
I'm in Arizona. I grew up in Phoenix. I didn't know that. I actually didn't know that.
She's a diehard. Yeah, Cardinals and
Yeah,
Suns.
desert, swamps, and then
It's tough to be
in
a fan.
Texas.
I leave Phoenix, and I come to Dallas, and it's tough to be a fan.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But to your point, you can imagine my wedding having a bunch of coon asses out in the desert asking what that interesting vegetation is. It's guys, to my aunt and uncle, those are cactuses, and just cool it,
Cacti.
Just cool it on the wine and cool it on the quick.
Yeah, sober up a little bit. Thanks. Yeah. Well, tell us if you got a minute. What's kind of an exciting project that you guys have going, or something you can talk about that I know
Yeah.
maybe Oklahoma, or I don't know what you want to talk about, but
Well, that's a good one because it's certainly exciting. It's got all the excitement that a reality show could probably handle. You've got a very red state in Oklahoma, a very blue city in Norman, and we've got the best partner I probably ever had in my career, which is the University of Oklahoma. Leadership of the school, the president throughout, the athletic director, who's literally a legend there, and the folks that run the Oklahoma University Foundation that are just fantastic partners. Another fantastic partner is Lincoln Property Company, who is our co-GP partner on that. I worked with Bill Duvall and was partners with Bill and Mac Pogue at Lincoln, and owe a lot of any of the success I have to them, really. So it's a $1.2 billion project trying to create a market in Norman, both commercial, retail, tons of apartment units and that, and it's all centered around a new basketball stadium for OU.
Oh, wow.
Issuing bonds, big public-private, but there's been a lot of pushback. I mean, it's a $230 million net present value total package for really for the arena and some of the critical infrastructure. But the way they write it in Oklahoma statute is a cap of $600 million, which when you buy a house, you don't say, well, gosh, I bought it for what I bought it for plus all the mortgage payments. You say I bought it for what I bought it for. And the headline out there is a $600 million give to a developer, and you can see how the community has opinions on that. So we've been kind of working through it. We had a very, very favorable ruling in the courts here recently, and are really excited about that. Ready to move forward.
Good for you.
That's nice.
what's timeline you think? Everything goes perfectly. We're looking at 20.
A decade.
Thank you for that asterisk. Everything goes perfectly. I would imagine we're doing a horizontal phase in 2025.
Oh, wow.
I hope that OU will be playing basketball. I certainly can't speak for them, but sooner rather than later, and that's part of the first phase. So in the 2000s, 27, 28.
So you mentioned retail in this project. How
Yes.
is, since we got all these retail experts on the panel here, how does retail perform in these college campuses?
Well, let me
And what type of retail performs? I
as a
guess?
beleaguered retail operator expert, let me just tell you, right at or less than 10% of the NOI of the project is retail, and it's all everybody talks about.
Yeah.
When they look for guarantees and what the project, what the make of it is going to be, I mean, they're really concerned with the multifamily characteristics, very concerned about the office characteristics, very concerned about the arena. But what the moniker this project took on was the entertainment district. And the focus
Yeah.
from the city councilors was the retail. What are we going to get? Are we going to get X tenant from Dallas? Or are we going to get Y tenant that we've seen here, there, or yonder? And
I think
you
it's
guys know
90% food and bev, right?
it's going to be mostly food and bev.
Yeah.
That's correct. I mean,
Okay.
you might go for an athleisure guy, but this is just solving to a district play. And what we've learned in kind of master planning, every developer would love to develop Avalon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every developer would love to develop the Domain, which are dominant node anchors. They anchor a node in their respective MSAs. Some deals are going to be great, getting great food and beverage, activating office, giving that live, work, play feel, and appropriately merchandising. You know, maybe all the soft guys aren't going to come to you. You know, maybe the athleisure doesn't even come to you. But understanding early on what you are and what you're not, I think, is a big part of
Yeah,
not having a failure.
It's a totally different type of university because they don't have athletics. They have a little bit, but UTD, I helped them consult, and we built a mixed-use project with 1,600 beds and retail. And when they initially wanted to build this retail, they wanted big box grocery, entertainment, all. And I said, guys, let's look at like what's going to stay and last. And we ended up shrinking it to about 27,000 feet of retail that was an amenity to the students.
Yep.
That, as you just said, I mean, it's not going to move the needle on your NOI, you know, at the end of the day. But
talked
it's got to
NOI,
be
but-
it's got to be the right concepts that the students will love, that they'll get behind, that they'll support. But that's definitely the curated tail wagging the dog sometimes.
And that's just to build on that. That's the discipline that's great in a project, because when it stands alone, often you're going to have tenants do well.
Yeah.
So it's great when it makes returns for a partnership. It's not a loss leader, but it's actually the right thing for the project. Oftentimes when you're going into a community, this is their Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
And it's your next project. And right, the goal we all know is, trying to make it your Super Bowl, but trying to guide these sponsor communities, institutions, organizations to an appropriate retail program is probably the biggest challenge and the most important one.
Oh, for sure.
How much actual GLA is the retail going to be?
140,000.
Okay.
It's required to be at least 140,000. So
Okay.
a nice bite-sized node. My
A lot of
partners.
space. That's a good amount of space to
And
fill. Like,
GLA, for the listeners who don't know what that
gross leasable area.
gross leasable area. Thank you. That's a gloss. That'll
Glad
be
you
on the
took that
test.
one.
Yeah. Because so y'all been doing real retail for a while, and Patrick, especially you started when you were 16. So how has it evolved over the last since your career? We've all seen it go change. We were even told it was dying and never coming back, and here we are. We're talking about it and we're building it.
That was the way I was going to answer the question. Is I was going to say positively, because there was a time, and it was frankly the time when I started. I kind of caught the tail end of the boom cycle in power center development, and the outdoor lifestyle center with the theater on one end, the kind of the fountains and the engagement components in the center, and the outdoor kind of shopping areas pioneered in like the Western U.S. by companies like Vestar, Mesa Rich, etc. So you saw that kind of program, and then the tertiary power center go national. Then fast forward to, we're in a recession from 2008 to 12, and everyone was buying big box centers with any amount of vacancy from banks at $10, $20, $30 a square foot. At the same time, you had Amazon coming in, and you had a lot of the legacy box guys, Kmart, Sears being the big one, right, going under. And then the dominoes continued to fall, such that institutions, kind of up until 5 years ago, really pulled back out of retail. It was like what's happening to office now, or the outlook on office, is what happened to retail kind of in the mid-2010s.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward, the folks that bet on that, and it kind of begs the question of, is there a contrarian bet on office? But the folks that bet on that on retail and big box, with where construction costs have gone, how high they've gotten, you don't have box vacancy. 10 years ago, the concern was you have mounting box vacancy through retailer bankruptcies, and Amazon's going to crush it, and there's going to be this glut of space. We're going to be overbuilt.
Right.
Right now, I would say even boxes and junior boxes are generally full. Now, can I say that about Toledo, Ohio? No. If there's fundamentally a lack of job growth and no consumption, then that's an issue. But
So
you look
my
at
new Pizza
DFW,
Hut in Toledo, Ohio is. I was just about to tell you
we're
about that.
going to find a lovely 7 brew coffee to go in there.
Okay.
Or,
Okay. Good.
But you look at DFW, and I mean, you tell me if you drive around town and you see any sort of if there's box vacancy, it's not there for long,
Yeah.
right? And the issue really is, did you pay too much such that it's too expensive to cut the boxes up? Is there a list of users for boxes that are 80 to 100,000 feet? No, it's very capital intensive. Retail is extremely capital intensive, but throughout all the bankruptcies, and even in the last year, there have been a number of companies to fall, right? You look at the Big Lots space, Joann's, gone and never coming back. Big Lots, gone and never coming back, right? You look at restaurants, Hooters filed last week.
Party City.
You've got Party City on the big box space. Red Lobster had a strategic bankruptcy. They're still staying around. All of those concepts, we can't get enough of them because there's positive absorption, right? It got to where construction costs got to where they were because there's just no vacancy, there's no space. And so everybody has to build new ground up. Developers are fiending over this second gen product, and owners aren't taking the haircuts that they thought they would if they get these buildings back. Like, hey, I paid $3 million for this acre-and-a-half restaurant. Well, there's a lot of depth there, folks, to take it, either as an existing building or, it gets bulldozed. And, your sit-down old Hooters restaurant turns into a drive-through Chick-fil-A. They don't need a 6,000-foot restaurant. They need a 4,000-foot building, but they need a whole extra acre to fit the parking lot and the queuing and the drive-through stacking and all of those other things. So the utility of retail is kind of what's keeping values, propping values up and allowing the market to sort of stabilize despite interest rate movements. You get office stuff, I sometimes don't know what to do with it, right? It's functionally obsolete in some areas.
Well, sometimes you underestimate the American's ability to all-you-can-eat shrimp. They will
point.
absolutely run you into the ground with shrimp.
Yeah.
I will say, like, what's
Especially my neck of the woods, brother.
I will say what does get stuff that we watch, or that I tend to watch, because you connect the dots, and you start to connect the dots. You see the after effects later in a company's earnings, but I look at things like credit card debt balances, right? Like, are people putting more money on credit? And you look at things like when retailers report earnings, the discretionary stuff going away, right? Like Home Depot revenue, I want to say, was up. They reported earnings 2 days ago or yesterday. Revenue was up like 14%. I mean, that's billions of dollars.
Yeah.
But the margin wasn't great because people aren't buying the electronics, the washing machines, the appliances, those sort of items
They've
that
gotta
have a lot
fix
of
their
juice, right? They're doing the must do,
Yeah.
must have type of items. So like the discretionary spend is what's a little scary, and the stuff's gotten a lot more expensive, right? We can talk about tariffs and all that other crap, but I don't think we're trying to be macroeconomists here. But experiential food and bev, to kind of tie things back into your project, I think that's where people are wanting to spend their money, whether they can afford it or not.
So let me do a plug for the industry, for the base of the industry. Our project builds off of a Target anchored center that our company owns, which is the most natural way to build in a suburban market. Is you go in with your traditional loss leaders, right? Your big box anchors. And then you build out that node, you build out that commercial node. In 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, where we'd hand our business cards and people really want to start a GoFundMe page. I mean, retail was way out of favor. And it was amazing being in the industry and seeing how Wall Street and some of these really smart generalists just kind of totally missed it. Resource business is a little bit different, but a little bit the same, where these guys just said, look, it's going away. And the most efficient way to accomplish last mile distribution is through a retail store. Yep. And when you saw industrial rents approaching double digits, and these junior boxes aren't renowned at that time above $11.50, $12 a foot, you just had a hard time comprehending what was happening. So I think what's happened to just kind of build on what Patrick said, a lot of folks started investing after the GFC in omnichannel. Old school, old line merchandisers became tech companies. Like, go look at who Walmart and Target's hiring.
Yeah.
It's not just merchandising folks, which used to be where kind of the sex appeal was within a retailer, anywhere but real estate, right? The real estate department wasn't always the most favored in terms of in the boardroom. But at the end of the day, these groups made an early investment to omnichannel, to technology, to being logistics savvy, and now be logistics firms. And that's what a retailer looks like today. So you look at Costco, you look at Walmart, you look at Target. Target's stock hasn't been doing great, but these companies are dynamic players.
But if they're not doing that, that's where they struggle. If they
where they
can't do
struggle.
that, and where the consumer gets frustrated, I get really frustrated with, and it's usually more the mall and the apparel guys. To your point, the box guys have done a wonderful job of the product. They can either get it to you or it's on the shelves. I could tell. I think more than half the time, when you go into an apparel store, they don't have your size. They just direct you to shipping it to you, right? And it's like the reason I parked and I walked in and I did this and I tried it on is because I want to walk out with it. Like,
Right.
I want to get a shirt. I want to go golfing with it this weekend. If you're a woman and you want to get an outfit, right, and you want to wear it this weekend, you don't want to wait for it to ship for 10 days or whatever it is, even if they offer the free shipping, et cetera. And that's a big stat, is like the bulk of these retailers that aren't in the categories that you mentioned, the ones that are struggling, is that they carry so much less of what they have in the actual physical stores anymore.
But in their defense, if you are like me, Humpty Dumpty, a 4618, I mean, that's hard to carry. You know?
Well,
but you're right.
I gotta get all my stuff.
Sometimes you want something right now.
yep.
You know, and do you think the spaces? It looks like a lot of these spaces, the herds are being thinned out, and the places that have adapted are now leaders, and you know the ones that aren't are the Kodak film groups that just didn't see it happening, and now they're going away.
You've got some businesses that fundamentally, and we represent some of them, so I gotta be careful with the names, but I'll say drugstores generically, right?
Right.
The drugstores have focused a lot on obviously distributing corporate contracts and distributing the medicine.
Yeah.
The average drugstore is 15,000 feet. 3,000 feet of that is used to distribute medicine, which is where they make 70% of their money.
Interesting.
12,000 feet of it is an oversized, call it generic convenience store, where the products are more expensive than if you walk into a Target or a Walmart, and they don't do as good of a job with it, with keeping it clean, with keeping it stocked, with keeping it fresh, etc. So what is happening? Drugstores are downsizing, right? Can they do what they do? There's no margin in the 12,000 feet of everything else that they do.
Yeah.
It used to be that the model was get them in for their drugs and get throughput and have them pay whatever, $10, $20, $15 on drugs with a copay, but then have them spend $50 on overpriced Gatorade and cigarettes and beer and whatever else it is.
Right.
The value is not there to the consumer, so they struggle.
So you buy your COPD medicine and then you buy your Marlboros on the way out.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think a couple of them stopped carrying cigarettes because of that, so maybe that was a poor example. But like, to your point, Advance Auto's another one. Poor earnings, they're closing 500 plus locations. You know what they are building 10 net new stores of this year? Hubs, distribution hubs. So they can get rid of the underperformers and they can get the products onto the remaining store shelves. And 500 stores, when they've got several thousand, as a percentage of store count, is not a disaster. They're not
Right.
going away. But they're building almost zero net new retail outlets, but they're building 10 new DC hubs. And those are big facilities.
And it's a wonky box. Like when you get a vacant CVS Walgreens, the square it
Doesn't lay out well.
and it's hard to demise. And there's some guys that can take those, but it's a interesting size.
So the good and bad of the retail business, you know your customer, right?
Yeah.
You know what they're going to pay, you know what they're not going to pay. And the biggest change for landlords, probably kind of through COVID and really up until this point, I think it's pretty well figured out now, but is what is prototypical. So if Burlington was 50, 52, 55, are they now 21 to 24?
Yeah.
Understanding what good space is today versus good space yesterday.
Have you done a Burlington deal recently?
We
you,
have,
you
yeah.
were you were spot
Yeah.
on with that number.
Yeah. So, and right, I mean, like if you buy a great
It's
center,
half. It's half of the square.
it's half the square foot.
And 10 years ago, they were
Yeah.
75,000 feet. So
Yeah.
they went from 75 to 50 to 30 to 20.
And that's the trick, right? A 75,000, it usually is proportion. So you've got that depth where if you chop it up 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
it's still going to be storage. You just try to get the nets covered. So much of it is, to Patrick's point, that's on the pad. This is in line, but understanding where these prototypes are going. Because you can have great real estate, but if the depths don't work, if the box is too big, it's a real challenge.
It's still changing a lot. Sounds like the retail side. It's great. The
It's
market's awesome,
moderating,
but
it feels like the
they're-
biggest change was over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I hope the statement you just made, I hope the next 5 isn't as volatile as the last 5. That's kind of the hope
Yeah.
for us industry.
They're starting to
participants.
figure it out now.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Some
interesting.
retailers, like fewer and fewer of them, some can start selling and it doesn't matter what the proto is, right? And the one that comes to mind is Chick-fil-A, right? Those stores will do over $9 million with a drive-through, without a drive-through, and we're selling both of them right now. We have non-drive-through, walk-up, pick-up only Chick-fil-A stores.
Oh, wow.
And it's shocking that they would do that, because typically if they don't have a drive-through, they're trying to relocate and find one. But they are opening net new non-drive-through locations, and they can get the volume out of them.
They can't lose. Yeah.
They can't. If they try, I don't think they could.
No, it's incredible
more
what
chicken.
what they're doing. So yeah, and it's it's really interesting. We're almost out of time. I think we're going to have to do a part 2 of this because I think we could go forever. But one of the things that really strikes me is I thought the quote unquote restaurant model. I didn't think I thought that would work forever, and I'm really surprised that Hooters is going out. So is that over? Is that over?
We don't know if it's chapter 7 or 11, unless I missed something, but we don't think they're going away. I think they have enough brand equity where they'll figure it out. I mean, God, they had casino licenses, et cetera. They will figure out. Look, there will be a place for that type of dining. There's Twin Peaks as another alternative. Bombshells, which is owned by Rick's Cabaret, is a sports bar with that type
Guys
of a
haven't
feel.
changed.
So,
I don't think.
I don't think so
It's
either.
going to take more than a little tech and AI to work that out.
Yeah.
That is analog all the way long.
The Bresta AI restaurants coming out too, or it's robots. Yeah, that'll be the next
I'm just
one.
going to totally probably cancel myself with this next statement, but I'd like to see somebody just buy Hooters and just with a totally woke vision for it and just completely change the offerings. Like, we're here to serve everyone, right? And see how that goes. I do think the problem with, I'm not trying to make this a political statement, but the reason you have retail is you have choice, right?
Yeah.
And you can't be all things to all people. And you see certain brands try to do certain things. It's like, go to a restaurant that does this, right? If that's what there are people that are totally offended by a concept like Hooters. It was a rite of passage when we were kids. Is that they have said that's reasons for it going away. So I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. I think they'll find a way to stay relevant.
Yep.
Well, guys, we had a hard time today. I'd love for y'all to come back. I think we can keep going on this.
I'd love
this
to,
is
too.
a really good
Thank you.
conversation.
Thanks for having us, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Tyler.
Yeah.
Thanks for guest hosting again. Really appreciate
Appreciate
it.
you, buddy. Yeah, thanks
you did
for
a
all this.
fantastic job. You were fired for the spill, but you redeemed yourself.
Then I
Did I miss a
totally
spill?
redeemed
Was there a
myself.
spill earlier?
Yeah, he put water all over my notes here. I didn't look at him
unbelievable.
once, so it didn't even matter. But yeah, it's
Can't
okay.
take
Can't
me
take it anywhere.
Yeah, no.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming on. This is the Working Title Show with Zach Sams. We'll see you next time.